Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have a little bit of a modified version before we get into the regular agenda. We do have a public hearing, so we're going to get started with that. So Lynette, if we can go ahead and show at 6:30, we're going to go ahead and get started with a notice of the public hearing. But before we actually go into that, if everybody can please rise, and we'll go ahead and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you so much, especially after yesterday. It's so important to remember what it's all about and what unites us every day. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into notice of public hearing, and we're going to go ahead and open that up. It's a city council. The City Council of Lytle, Texas will hold a public hearing on Monday, September the 12th, 2022 at 6:30 on the proposed tax rate for fiscal year 2022-2023. This public hearing will be held at Lytle City Hall, 14916 Main Street, Lytle, Texas. As it shows right now, still anybody would like to go ahead and any comments or address the council? There. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have anybody to address that, so go ahead and make it. It's 6:31, and we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on that. Thank you so much for your help on that, and Matt, thank you for taking care of that too. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and jump into the regular meeting. It is 6:32 p.m. And we'll go ahead and start with roll call.
Alderman Cortez.
Here.
Alderman Morrow.
Present.
Alderman Emery.
Here.
Mayor Gonzalez.
Yep.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Here.
Alderman Kate via Zoom.
When are we?
Here.
He's here. He just shut off his video.
Okay. So good. Thank you for being here. And Charles, thank you for joining us. Thank you for serving our nation on the other side of the world. We really appreciate you joining us this evening and what you're doing out there. Okay, citizens to be heard. This is the opportunity for citizens, visitors, and guests to address the City Council on any issue or any item of the agenda in compliance with LGC Section 551.007. City Council may not discuss any presented issue, nor take any action to be taken on any issue at this time. Citizens to be heard are limited to 3 minutes each. So do we have anybody in the audience that would like to go ahead and be part of the citizens to be heard in our agenda? Okay, don't have any. We'll go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 5, consent agenda. Consider the approval of the minutes. We're looking at August the 8th, 2022 and August 22nd of 2022.
We've got item 6C.
Okay. What page are we looking at?
I didn't write that.
Oh, that's
That
okay.
should be like the third page.
Third page?
Second or third.
6C.
It's 6C.
Sir, can you turn on your microphone, please? Thank you. Sorry.
So under 6C, Alderman Rodriguez amended the item to also include any, should be future years
Oh, instead of further.
instead of
Yeah.
further.
Yeah, do that.
Then I also have item 6I.
Looks like the same page.
Right, so it's signage, comma, the coordinate, it should be then coordinate, where it comes out of the general fund. Just a couple of spell check of probably errors. Those are the only two that I have.
Okay.
Do I need to make a motion to accept those?
Yes, I think there's some, they're still reviewing. A few. So Jesse, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
So anything that we have on the minutes that is concerning a contract or something like that, we need to make sure that we put the amount, right, that the council agreed to?
It's generally helpful, it's generally helpful to do so, Councilmember, usually for purposes of the agenda, so that the public is aware of the item to be considered, and just for record keeping, it's just good to verify what was authorized for the staff to do.
Okay. And for our auditor, correct, Lynette? Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, there's another little grammar item on the last page, announcements from City Council, item 3. Alderman Emery talked about the streets that have been worked on or that have been repaired. Just the way it is isn't correct, so that have been worked on.
Yeah, so that's page 5 out of the packet. Okay.
That's all I have.
Awesome. You have anything else that you can see in there?
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda item, or agenda for August the 8th, 2022 as amended.
Okay. And
I'll second that if you mean accept the minutes.
accept the minutes?
Yeah, he said agenda.
Okay,
Accept the
so
minutes.
accept the minutes?
Oh, minutes, sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
minutes for the 8th of 2022. Okay. I have a motion, I got a second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, and I need another one for the next set of minutes.
So I have a correction on 6B.
Okay,
Could I get the last word on that motion, but the timestamp was 43 minutes and 55 seconds on the video. The motion should read, let's see, a motion was made by Alderman David Emery and seconded by Alderman Michael Rodriguez to delay the item. A vote was taken. The actual motion should have been, motion to authorize the city administrator to issue RFP and RFQ to move forward with, I couldn't get that last word. Did I say that backwards? So the motion should read, motion to authorize the city administrator to issue RFP and RFQ to move forward with. So it wasn't delayed. And I
Yeah,
did-
it was,
I did
yeah,
not
we're
second
moving
that.
forward to CDBG, is what it was.
What it was, okay. So
Yes.
that's the correction needs to be made on that one.
That's right.
okay. Perfect, anything else? All right,
Okay, now I want to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended for August the 22nd, 2022.
okay, got a motion on the floor for us to, second, Sam, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, appreciate that. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Consider the approval of the payment of the bills. On there. So, I think you have some, you have a sheet in front of you, present it to you.
Who would we address here? Lynette, I guess?
Mhm.
The very last item on the second page, Lynette, the Alamo signs and decal, I'm guessing that's City of Lytle decal on the top of our new electronic sign,
Yes, sir.
$482. Was that not included in the original package?
No, sir. So when they did that, they only did one side. So Matt reached out to them so we could have it on both sides because you can't see it from one to the other.
I'll correct, no, the 482 is actually for decals for the public works. Some new
Oh, I'm
decals
sorry.
for their equipment in the back of their trucks. The
Oh.
other one was for 1,600 to have them do the other half of that sign.
Okay.
So it's for extra decals we needed for new equipment
Okay.
in trucks.
So what's the story on the decal on the sign on here?
It's been done. It was another $1,600 to have that done.
Both sides?
The one side that didn't get done.
Okay.
It's been completed. It's up.
Wow, okay. Thank you.
Okay,
I move that we accept the bills as listed and pay them.
okay. Got a motion on the floor for us to accept the bills?
Second.
Okay, second from Joseph. Appreciate that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the open session. Take action on the items discussed. The first one that we have is A, consider and act upon an ordinance of the city of Lytle authorizing the city's combination tax and limited pledge revenue certificates of obligation, Series 2022, providing for payment of the certificates by the levy of Alderman tax upon all taxable property within the city and resolving other matters incident and related thereto. So, go ahead and turn that over. Andrew, come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Andrew Friedman with Samco Capital Markets. I'm joined by your bond attorney, Lauren Ferrero, this evening as well. We have priced for your consideration and approval this evening certificates of obligation for $8.5 million. And to give you a bit of a synopsis, included the timetable of events. I was here on July 11th. You all approved the notice of intention resolution, which published the city's notice of intent to borrow this money. It went in your paper for 2 consecutive weeks and on your website. We went through a rating process, a credit rating process with Standard & Poor's. And I'd like to take a moment to brag on Lynette and Matt, who led the city's effort in going through that process with Standard & Poor's. They look at not only your audited financials, but they also want to get a sense for who Lytle, Texas is, on top of what you can read on paper. And they did a tremendous job. We didn't have a credit rating going into this. So it was a lot of upfront information that needed to be provided and kind of a deep dive by the credit rating agencies. And they did a tremendous job in providing not only the level of detail that they wanted, but really in an effort to put the city's best foot forward, so to speak. So the result of all of that effort was attaining a AA- credit rating. That is a very high investment grade bond rating. The higher your credit rating, the lower the interest rate that you can secure when you go to do a financing. So the highest being a AAA, very few cities, mostly very large cities have that. Then it's AA+, AA, AA-, then it drops to A+, A-, and so on. So with that credit rating, what that allowed the city to do is to go out and borrow money. We'll talk about the interest rates we received today. When you drop below that AA-, generally you have to go out and pay for a municipal bond insurance policy. That's just an additional cost that allows us to borrow at AA credit rating interest rates. So we were able to avoid some additional cost by attaining that rating. So kudos to you all, and certainly kudos to Matt and Lynette for that effort and the result of that helped to secure the interest rates on this CO. Behind this first page is the final numbers, and I'll go through these and perhaps not in particular granular detail, but what this shows, we're borrowing, there's 3 columns: general fund, utility fund, and total. In total, we're going to issue $8,380,000 in par. A portion of this is to fund $1 million in general fund improvements, which is streets and sidewalks. There's some grant funds that we're borrowing to help match, as well as do some other necessary street work. That'll put $1 million into that project fund, and then $7.5 million into the utility fund. We break that out separately so that we can attribute a portion of this debt to the INS portion of your tax rate, and the other portion is paid from the general fund, and then the $7.5 million will be paid for by the utility system rates and revenues that we generate. And so that's the purpose of those 3 columns. You can see that we're going to put $8.5 million in the city's bank account when this closes on September 28th. We're only issuing $8,380,000 in par. Why the discrepancy there, or disparity? The bond purchasers are going to pay us a premium of $290,000. You can see that listed below the par amount there at the top. That's a difference between the coupon rate that you will pay on those bonds over 20 years and the actual yield on those 20 maturities over time. So what that allows us to do is borrow less in terms of par, still put the full $8.5 million in the project fund, and also pay the underwriter's discount and the other costs of issuance, which you can see detailed on the bottom half of the page. As you flip to the second and third, fourth pages, you can see the amortization schedules for the general fund portion of this debt, amortized over 20 years, and likewise for the utility fund portions of this debt. This has been structured to fit within the tax rate needs of the city that we project over the next few years, as well as the utility fund revenues and expenditures. We've gone to great lengths with Lynette in going over the financials to ensure that we have the financial wherewithal to meet these obligations over the next 20 years, and we feel like we're in a good place to do so. The last page of the attached that I'll just point your attention to is the true interest cost. That's roughly the average interest rate. When you look at the debt service schedules of each of the attached, there's various coupon rates. So we blend all of those together against the yields to come up with that, which is roughly the average interest rate, locking in a rate of 3.94%. Interest rates have been going up throughout all of 2022, and they've continued their climb north. We ran numbers at 3.75%. This is coming in slightly higher than that. That's not a reflection of your credit worthiness as a city. It's the general market that is causing interest rates to continue their climb. Again, we're in great shape in terms of meeting the amortization against the tax rate goals and the utility system revenues. But interest rates have just continued to march north. Inflation obviously is a major driving factor of that. The Federal Reserve continues to raise their base funds rate, and that drives the market higher. So again, in a historical context, 3.94% for 20-year money is still a great rate. I'm very pleased with it, but wanted to point out that borrowing rate to you all. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. Lynette or Matt, if I've left anything out that you'd like for me to touch upon, I'm certainly happy to do so, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Andrew, I think just for clarification, great job in a sense of the streets and some of the improvements, but a lot of this is going towards our water projects. Is there any way you can talk a little bit about that?
It's $7.5 million for the water project. So by and large, this is for utility system improvements. One of the benefits of issuing certificates of obligation is it allows us to have some economies of scale. Rather than borrow one time for utility projects and pay the cost of issuance and underwriter's discount for that, then come back and borrow a second time. You'll get a second credit rating to borrow for general fund projects. There's an economies of scale to be had. Combining those, issuing one piece of debt for that, and trying to keep the cost to a minimum. And so that's the reason for doing so. The $1 million is for general fund and streets. $7.5 million is for the utility fund. Relative to the individual projects, I'd turn that over to Matt or Lynette to speak to the projects themselves.
So like you said, the streets are 1 million, the sewer plant project is 1.4, and the water system is 6.1, roughly.
And that's the water tower along with the
The
extra.
water tower with the loop line, those, yeah,
With the
that's
loop
the quotes we got from my engineers a few months ago.
Yeah. So council, quite a few projects all put together on here to kind of help us out, prepare us for the growth and some of the other additional things that we need. But I'll turn it back. Is there any questions?
Yeah, Andrew, we know that over the last almost decade, interest rates have been at like historic lows.
Absolutely.
If we get lucky and get there again, is this open to refinancing at some point in the future?
It absolutely is. These bonds will be callable without any penalty at their par amount February 1st of 2031. And so we'll have the ability at that time to take these from the investor either with cash or if interest rates are lower than they are today, to refinance those for savings akin to what we did in January of this year.
So we have almost a decade locked into this interest rate.
That's correct. That's a standard, it's a 10-year call option, in this case, really 9-year call option without penalty. When I say without penalty, you can structure to have a call option a year from now, but bond investors, knowing that they're only guaranteed that interest payment for a year,
Right.
penalize you with a higher interest rate. So this is a standard call option to municipal bonds, and it's without any penalty.
All right, good, thank you.
Any other questions? At all? Well, can I go ahead and, somebody make a motion for us to go ahead and accept this?
I make a motion that we accept this issuance of the bond as laid out tonight by Andrew.
Okay, certificates of obligation.
Yes, and certificates of obligation.
Yes, second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, thank you so much. And Andrew, to the whole staff, everybody, thank you so much for all your help. We really appreciate it. This has been a task, and without a doubt, just like you said, I know a lot of time on the phone with Lynette and Matt, trying to get all this together. So kudos to the organization and everything that you did to help us through this process.
No,
We really appreciate
credit
it.
belongs to them. They did a tremendous job. I think the credit rating speaks for itself, and for everything that you and prior city councils have done to keep the strong financial position, and would encourage you all to not spend down reserves. The credit rating report is with the cities. I'd encourage all of you to read through that. It speaks highly of what all has gone on here for many, many years. It's been a very well-run city, and with the strength of the staff you've got today, I think bright days ahead. A lot of challenges to face with growth and everything else, but certainly happy to play our part. So congratulations to you all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to item B. Consider and act upon the request from Anderson Columbia Company Incorporated to install a meter to access water from municipal fire hydrant for a construction project. All right. Come on up, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. My name is Darrell Chancey. I'm superintendent for Anderson Columbia. We'll be performing the road work out on the service roads. I'd like to ask for a water meter to be installed on one of your hydrants for construction purposes.
Yes, sir. What do you think, James? No? He's got the thumbs up, thumbs down.
I think we have two, Mayor. They were both out at one time, but I believe one contractor's already done with theirs, correct, James?
I don't know if he's final yet.
I think we're waiting for him to final out because they've got another water source actually on their property they're drawing from.
Right, I spoke to the gentleman that's doing
Yes, sir.
the subdivision, and they're through with it.
So, once we get them finalized out, we'll have another meter available for a project like this.
So, James, any questions or anything?
No, sir.
Nothing at all? I know you guys have been doing a great job out there, so I know you need this in order to continue on with the next phase.
Yes, sir, we've got a lot of stuff coming up pretty quick.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna need some water.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. So, council, and get a motion for us to go ahead and carry on this?
I'd like to make the motion to accept the request for Anderson Columbia Company to install a meter to access water from the municipal fire hydrant for construction project.
Okay, got a motion on the floor?
Sorry?
A second. Okay, further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries forward. There you go, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Just work with James.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Thank you for being here.
Sorry.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to C, discussion and possible action on update from city administrator on alternatives to address traffic issues on Lytle Somerset Street to include updating pricing on speed bumps.
So council, at the last meeting, I was directed to get some information on things we could do to help with the traffic volume issue on Lytle Somerset. I don't know if there's any residents here tonight to speak on behalf of it. And talking with legal, I will tell you, prior to us doing anything on that road, state law requires that we have a traffic engineer perform a traffic study. So we would have to do that before doing anything. Some of the alternatives I looked at, and you'll see I got those from Alderman Kate sent me a while back, the city of San Antonio, what they do. Options out there really the only way to slow down the flow of traffic are major things like turning it to one-way, putting dividers in. I mean, anything you can do to force traffic to not want to go on the road, really, to include speed humps. So back in July of 21, the chief gave a cost to install 6 speed humps along that road, to include signage and everything. It was roughly around $10,000. At the time, council decided to lower the speed limit from 30 to 25 because everyone said it was a speeding issue. We saw through data that lowering the speed limit worked, and we reduced the speed to 25. However, we still have complaints that there's speeders or that it's just the sheer traffic volume now. To do speed humps, the exact same thing today, I estimate it to be at 15,500. So you can see how much has gone up in just that short time. So I don't really know what to tell you other than before we do anything, a traffic engineer needs to perform a traffic study on that road.
Comments?
How many speed bumps are you talking about?
I gave the same number as 6. Again, a traffic engineer would have to look at it and tell you this is how many speed bumps or speed humps, not really speed bumps, speed humps or speed tables. That's what they have to look at. Because state law, if you look at the state law, it actually talks about a city cannot put an obstruction in a roadway. And when we put a speed hump in a roadway, that's considered an obstruction. And if somebody receives damage to their vehicle, according to the Attorney General's opinion that I sent you, they have a claim, and they can make a claim against us. So that's why you have to have a traffic engineer look at all this, and it's a lot more complicated than just saying put a speed hump here, here, and here.
And the reason we looked at 6 back then was input from the residents on Prairie Street, where we have 2 spread out over a long period, and they just didn't feel like it was effective. That, you know, people would get going fast, slow down, get going fast. So that's why we initially looked at the different number. That's why there's such a difference.
Yeah, we have the same problem in water speed. We only have 1 speed bump, and they drive real fast and slow down, and they pick up speed again, and it's...
What about putting up a sign, road use for residents only? I mean, is that a practical thing to do, a legal thing to do?
We could put it up, but it's unenforceable. That's the only thing. You can put up no through traffic. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do. It's just how enforceable is it going to be, and how realistic is it? That's my only thing.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I thought
Yeah.
I'd throw it out there.
I think we threw it up there. We reduced the speed. We did everything the residents asked on the road when they were asking. Unfortunately, now it became a sheer volume because it's a direct route to a major store that everyone in this town uses, and that's what hurts us.
And from the complaints I received, what basically you're already gonna see is a domino effect. If you do it on one street, I've already got people, they want the next street, and it's gonna domino all across town. I've already got people on Magnolia Street, Benton Street, that reach out to me regularly about those issues. So we have to really be careful, because there's no way we can accommodate all the streets.
So there's some issues we can look. So like in San Antonio, if a community wants a speed hump on the road, they request it back to the city. There's a whole process in that booklet I sent you. They have it reviewed, they determine cost, and then they tell the residents, this is the cost. How would y'all like to pay for it? That's what San Antonio does from what I saw. Because like the chief said, it's a domino effect. The second, we get one street done and we follow all the rules to get it done legally, then the next street, and we could spend all of our money just putting speed humps or speed tables all over town
But we're
and
still
not accomplish
looking-
any infrastructure.
Yeah, we're still looking at the route, and the route is basically we got to have a traffic engineer tell us what is.
Everything that I read, and
be
even
the most-
talking with legal, and they can, is you have to have a traffic engineer perform a traffic study. Otherwise, you could open yourself up to liability.
Able to give us the options that are available based on the area and all that. I know we've had some challenges even determining the length, just because of the driveways where they're positioned and would be appropriate, and that would require a traffic engineer to help us out with that.
Yes, sir.
And another issue is, for me, being right there talking to these people, not everybody's on board. A lot of people don't want speed humps. They don't want, so I mean, That's where the problem comes in. It's, you know, this is on the agenda. There's no one here tonight. This is the second time. There's no one that lives over there that's come over here to, so it's very, for everybody that wants one, there's a person that says, I don't want that problem. And if you go to people on Prairie Street and you listen to them and they tell you about when vehicles that hearing trailers go over it and the noise it makes when people hit the speed humps, there's some quality of life issues with a bunch of speed humps. So I just don't know, you know, what the exact answer is, but that's just the feedback I get routinely, you know, from the public.
And I've always expressed that concern as well. You know, you have people that may want it, but what about the residents that don't? The city needs to have some type of consensus of that neighborhood, and I know I've talked to Jesse about this as well, and we just don't have it right now. Mayor, I'd like to table this motion. I'd like to go ahead and table it until the current traffic analysis that we have going, does it address these issues?
No,
It doesn't.
no, this would have to be a total different type of study done by a traffic engineer.
So Jesse, how can we table this for further review? Let's say, what I would like to see, I would really like the residents of that neighborhood to come forward and let me know, or come to a meeting and let us know what it is they want. Because what I don't want to have happen is to put the speed bumps in and then have citizens start complaining. I realize that we need to address this issue, but it has to be consistent at some point.
Councilman, what you can do is, I make a motion to take no action and postpone the item. You could schedule it for a hearing or workshop date at another time, perhaps reaching out to the community, see if any of them want to come at a particular day and time. But if you table it only, it would be on the next agenda.
I
Right,
see.
so if you take no action, then it is not automatically rescheduled, and you could then direct staff to find another time to reschedule it.
But if we were to table it with a town hall or future action, then we would have to set a date.
If you table it, it automatically appears on the next
Right.
agenda. But if you take no action, if you make a motion to take no action, then it just, no action is taken, and then it doesn't automatically appear on the agenda. But you can direct the staff to reschedule it for another time, at some other date, a month from now.
So I'd just
whenever
like
you
to make a motion to take no action on this item.
Okay.
I'll second.
Yes. First, got a second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you so much, council. I know there's probably going to be some other work to be done, but the route is, once again, a traffic engineer to try to figure out, and number two is have the folks that live around that area.
Yes, please, if
So-
you have a concern or want to make a statement, please come forward. Or at least let me know. Email me to the city and I'll go from there.
Roger that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We got D, discussion and update on addressing drainage issues at Lakeshore Estates. I know, Matt, if you can provide, and we also have Mr. Joyce also
Yes, sir.
here.
Yes, sir.
So-
Okay. Well, my name is Trace Joyce. I live at 16015 Whitecap Drive in Lakeshore Estates. And actually, it'd probably be ideal, since I'm not really caught up, to defer to Matt, to get some updates on what current status is. I have some concerns, but would like to know what's happening with it, and then perhaps discuss concerns.
So here's our current update. I have written an RFQ for an engineer. I had, one of our, since I've never written one, had an engineer look at it. He said it read good. It is now in legal's review. There, people are looking at it to make sure it's legal and everything looks good. We're waiting for those responses or corrections, anything we need from there. After that, we'll make the corrections. We'll issue that RFQ. We'll wait for responses to come back from however many engineers. We'll judge those. We'll then select an engineering firm, negotiate price. Then, if we have the money to do it, let them go out and start the project to see what we need to do to overall fix the drainage issue. Then from there, determine how we want to pay for it. Realistically, probably a year or two project. Because this is not going to be a cheap project. We're talking about fixing a bunch of drainage that has been there since day one of the subdivision, and it's going to cost a lot of work to fix probably. We tried the simple solutions, and unfortunately, even those were above the price amount we could do without having an engineer look at it. So that's where we are today.
Okay, so here's some of my concerns, okay? First of all, I understand time frame and what it takes to get everything aligned and actually have an engineered plan and go to a contractor and get pricing and all that stuff. I'm presuming, I think pretty safely, that when the community was annexed, when it became a community, certainly there was a civil plan that included a drainage plan. Now, if that needs to be redone because things changed, then so be it. That needs to be evaluated, and that's fine, I get that. But somewhere along the way, just for your consideration, and it's not necessarily an action item that I'm looking for, but just so everybody's thinking about it, if we get, and you already understand this obviously, and everybody may, but if there's an engineering firm who says, here's the plan that will work, and then one way or another, either by reference of the engineering firm themselves, or just by going and finding a contractor, you find a contractor that doesn't work, and everything lines up. You do the work, you install the drainage, everything works, everybody's happy. If the drainage doesn't work, which is the case currently, and whatever was installed initially by the contractor that installed those pipes in those two locations, it's obvious there's only 2 drainage locations in the entire neighborhood, and everything else is already built out, so it has to be built. It's going to have to be designed to suit current structure. So those don't work. I mean, there was some effort after my house flooded in 2010 to modify it to suit, and it hasn't. Since then, we've had continued issues with flooding events that have come really close to getting in my house again, getting neighbors' houses, going into garages, knocking down fence lines, all these things. Okay. So in regards to how that works, if the engineer didn't provide a good plan, the engineer's on the hook. If the contractor didn't build what the engineer said through like an investigative, like an inspector service or an engineer, something like that, I mean, this is the nature of what I do also. And it's not, and the contractor didn't install what the engineer said to install, then the contractor's on the hook. So as far as like the expenditure that we're looking to, I don't want to slow down this process because I think this is something that's handled in arrears. I think it's something worth giving some thought to, not necessarily an action item right now, but something to give thought to. Because the drainage that's there, flat doesn't work. Hasn't from the beginning. There were modifications made after my house flooded, after the first flooding event. There's been more since then. Something's happened there that's been authorized. And it's not the city, I don't believe. I believe the engineering firm or the contractor that installed whatever drainage exists have some issues there. So, as much as I appreciate this process, which I do sincerely, I mean, you took your role on like the 19th of May, you had a contractor looking at it the very next day, Friday morning. So, I mean, this has been expedited. I feel like there's been a big push for it. Everybody knows that since then, there's been some changes, and they are significant. BMA came in and plumbed the canal. At the time, when they started out to the west, they came and stopped where that drainage is. And I talked to Brian Sullivan myself, said, hey man, there's some conversation going on, hopefully we can expedite something falls into place. Can you skip this section and go east? And he did, he cooperated, went all the way to the east, went back the other way. There's a point where, without action, he had to move forward, had to finish his work. We have pictures, I know you've seen it, all that pipe is covered with concrete. The whole idea was that I'm not gonna call it BMA canal anymore, BMA berm was to be dropped, right? I mean, that's what we were discussing. So we actually have a flow there where obviously drainage is supposed to occur. In the process of construction, in sound pipe construction, they didn't do anything wrong. They have buried their pipe, they've covered it concrete, so that pipe won't float. And they've also, like is done commonly in pipeline construction, they built a crown over it, which is about 1 foot tall. And they pulled it off from that heavy clay soil from the west. Not a bad thing, it's packed well. So the previous height that was already alarming is now increased by 1 foot. So all the things that we discussed previously, like the height of fluid and hydrostatic pressure and what exists there, has increased to a greater, far greater degree. You think about the weight of water and, like I said, hydrostatic pressure and how much further everything is captured, that creates the opportunity for a catastrophic event. And certainly with another foot And we're in hurricane season, again, it's been raining, got an inch in an hour Sunday morning. I woke up and waited for it. So that sets up a scenario where all of a sudden, if we have those same sort of events that have already occurred over the past 12 years, they've occurred over and over again, we've seen them, right? Mine is the house with the kayaks going around, right? The likelihood of it happening again is certainly realistic. So I cannot accept 2 years. That's this hurricane season and next hurricane season. And hopefully I can be lucky that long. But something has to give. And I'm not sure what it is exactly. My one idea was whenever something like what we've talked about constructing is constructed, there has to be some degree of initial civil work. Has to be dirt removal. All right, the initial plan, even by the way BMA constructed their pipeline with the pouring of concrete on top of their pipeline, they were intending for, by everything we talked about with curbs and tie-ins and tows and pressure for water force from the north, all that stuff, to pour 4 inches of raised concrete on top of their concrete. And that would drop that would drop from the previous height, probably, I think, about 24 inches. Isn't that all right? Okay. So that resolves a lot of issues. Now, the full construction of the project, we talked about going cheaper with riprap, lots of options. What I'm looking for right now is cooperation in being able to at least do the initial civil work, because an extra foot of water during hurricane season, when we're going to get a lot of rain, because we always do, is going to be bad, especially for me. For everybody, potentially, because of the crests and breaks. Then the people who just had on Lakeshore Drive, who just had water in their garages, and 3 or 4 inches of water just flowing over Lakeshore Drive into the tanks from the north flowing south, that will change dramatically. That depth, that height, that pressure is going to change dramatically when that breaks. And it will. So now we have a new situation. Not to mention the fact that with the canal itself now backfilled, we had an advantage in that when the water did crest from the drainage to the canal, because nothing was going through completely unfunctional drainage, at least we had the cubic meters of volume in the canals themselves, and then the opportunity to disperse that water downstream. That doesn't exist anymore. All of that's going away.
So Trace, two comments. The first one with that one is I do agree with you in the sense of what's happening with the drainage.
Mm-hmm.
The canal, I will tell you, and just for everybody's information, I do live out there, and I've been out there when this happens, and it does happen. But I will tell you, having the drainage, having the canal now filled up, I see it where it's actually going to help the actual community. Because what would happen before is we would ask for those gates to be closed, and the first one that would get the water was coming through that canal. And we would get that first canal first full and spilling before we got the drainage actually overspilling into that. And that happened every single time. So not having the water come in on the canal, I'm eager to see as we got to have at least 3 to 3.5 inches before you start seeing some of that. So,
To the north.
yes. So it would be interesting to see what happens now that that canal is completely closed. There's no way that water can come into our community and then allow the water to flow through the drainage. Totally agree that we need to figure out what needs to happen out there. But I do have a question. So going back to the drainage in that portion, what year do you remember? Because I moved in way later. So what year did they actually make that area? Was that 2007? 2000?
Actually developed the neighborhood itself?
The drainage portion right there that we have a question of how
Honestly,
it was
not
designed.
sure. The initial drainage was installed before I purchased the lot. Made inquiries about the drainage and where water would flow.
When did you purchase?
2008,
Okay, so about,
yeah.
okay.
And so it had to be before that. And it was right after my house flooded they actually made modifications to it. That's when they poured the concrete all around it, made it all pretty, put the grate on it, all that
And
stuff.
did all that.
Right.
So Jesse, is there like a statute of limitations based on contract work where if there's a fault on the engineering design or the way it was done based on the engineering?
There are limitations on when the claim can be made.
Okay.
It may also be a factor of when, because there are various other things that have changed as well, some of those may also affect when that deadline would occur. since it sounds like there were initial improvements, there were modifications made, we'd have to put all of that together. But in any event, be it that there's a claim against the engineer, the developer, the contractor, like, the city would benefit from having an assessment of what the remedy or what the issue is, and then identifying what the cost to repair those changes before, and then they could then identify what's the source. Was it just poorly designed, or was it just by nature of the other developments that happen elsewhere, because there may be other stormwater discharges going into those particular drainage facilities. So there may be a number of factors. So evaluating the project entirely, identifying what the source of the problem is, be it design or construction or some other factor, would be valuable for the city to get. So we should have our comments. We've already finished our initial review of it, so we should probably have those comments later this week. So we'd be able to move quickly on that.
Okay, so in regards to, so we're on the same page. You had commented that the gate being open, that actually having a berm, a dam with zero drainage will benefit the community.
So in the past, once again, they would have both of the gates open. It's right where 6710 crosses over where it turns.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we had the heavy rain, that water would actually end up in our neighborhood. It would come in through the actual canal. Yes, sir. So now that canal, they closed it out. So that water will no longer come into the neighborhood. It's going to have to go downstream.
It was still the only water that was moving.
That
So
was
two factors. There was still the only water that was moving, and even when it filled there, it still spilled into the canal because there was cubic space available. And so, no opening even from there and even capturing water there, it was the only water moving downstream, and now that space is not there. And the drainage that we're talking about that would do anything from the north side of the neighborhood is non-existent. It's silted in, it's holding water now. It's been proven through multiple rain events that it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything. And the berm itself is now a foot higher. So understand that inlet doesn't exist, but the berm itself is now a foot higher. So everything that comes from the north is still coming right across 6710, loading that field to the west, loading up around my house, my neighbor's houses, all that. And that remains an issue, and has been since the efforts in whatever the time frame was, and I forget what the time frame was after my house flooded the first time. So it's now going to be a foot deeper. So now it is definitely catastrophic. There's not a benefit to having a larger dam and no space for water to go. There's currently no space for water to go, and the dam is higher. I mean,
yeah.
There's no logic around this.
I'm with you.
Okay, so here's the action that I'm looking for. The civil work before that concrete would actually be installed, I want that done. I want to find out, it wouldn't be expensive. At least we could cut down to the existing pipe. The original recommendation was 50 foot in length. To remove that dirt, and it's a clay dirt, I mean, you could keep it whatever, use it for whatever, but make it a significant distance, and then slope it out like we talked about, so that a truck, even though a ditch rider probably doesn't have much of a reason to be down there very often anymore since it's piped and plumbed, to actually be able to drive down it along it and still access it. But to at least create a situation where there's not a dam that is currently a foot higher with zero drainage. There's a dam that is a foot higher with zero drainage, none. I need something done sooner than before I get through 2 more hurricane seasons. It's been a decade. It's been more than a decade.
I know.
And it's raining.
And just like
I know you know.
just like you mentioned, we're actually trying to move out right now, and we're trying to do as best as we can. Unfortunately, even with the cost of the modification that we were looking at, it was going to go above the threshold. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So that requires us to go ahead and get an engineer to come in and look at it.
Completely understood.
So that's
But
where
with the
we're
only
at.
2 drainage outlets from what should, I mean, even if there's not any kind of recourse from an existing drainage plan, from an existing engineer or a poor contractor, even if there's not any way to gather that back, which is fine, it still exists. And so based on that plan alone, it doesn't take much to go out there and figure out. There's 2 locations for water to drain through, and their purposes are obvious. It's to the west end of the west lake, or pond, whatever it is, and then down at the east end of the east pond. Neither one of them are open. Neither one of them flow. They don't work. Now, the berm is a foot higher.
Why don't they work? Are they clogged up?
It's, well, I don't know exactly why they're clogged, why they don't work, other than I'm presuming they're silted in, because no water, we've seen it years and years, no water moves until it crested the canal. Once it crested the canal, then it would spill into the canal, and then, even though, like you said, we might have received water at the west end, we were still at least getting water down the east and out of the neighborhood. I mean, that is how that worked. I was part of it. I was helping open gates. I was needing those gates open. And I got off with this too. I bought a developed lot. Okay? I didn't, a developed city lot. It's not in by 20 acres and choose to build my home in the middle of a creek. There are setbacks. There's a place for my house. I placed it where it's supposed to be placed. And it's not a functional lot. And now, if it's not currently functional, it's at least less functional. And the door is open for absolute catastrophe for me and my family. Now, there are others involved, and I've talked about them all along, water in garages, fence lines, all that stuff. But now, major issue. This is a problem. So, what I'm asking is a motion to actually do the civil work. That's not going to be expensive. That is one piece of machinery and dirt work and haul off work. That's it. To at least get the berm, what was a canal, the berm cut down so the water can get through there where it comes through there, which is off that field to the west, from the north, across my lot, my neighbor's lots. A foot more will definitely be even in my neighbor's house, my new neighbor's house. That is to the east of me. I mean, that much more water, that much displacement, that's a problem.
DMA owns the pipe they buried.
Yes, sir.
And I would assume they own the berm on top of it, right?
Well, yes, sir, but they also had cooperated from the very beginning in trying to leave us time to make sure that we could make modifications. We thought the price was gonna be better. And we thought we'd be able to make those modifications relatively quickly based on an existing plan of there being 2 drainage boards. So BMA's cooperation has been there from the beginning. As long as they can get down the canal, which I would figure out to be constructed anyway. If we poured concrete, it would still be a situation where you'd have to come so I'll keep calling it a ditch road, even though it's not a ditch road. But it's, the thoroughfare there, the ditch road, into the drainage and past it, so they could still gain access to it where they needed to. But their cooperation has existed from the very beginning. I mean, they even changed their whole construction approach and methodology. They stopped in the middle.
Well,
went to the
my
other
question,
end.
I guess, was if we propose to them, we're gonna grade off the top foot of that berm and do some work on it, would they say, hey, have at it, or?
I think they'd be very receptive.
Okay.
I mean, I would think they'd be receptive because, if.
So when we do this, Trace,
Okay.
just so we can save ourselves time, it's your district, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and go stop by, get an understanding of what's going on, okay? And get with BMA, yep, and get with Matt.
So I've talked with BMA. They're okay with us doing it. I mean, we have to do some paperwork probably, because I don't want to go messing on their property until they've given us legal authority. The problem comes down to everything we've wanted to do out there is over the $20,000 threshold, that we have to have it overseen by an engineer. Now, maybe legal, if our public works does it, are we held to the same $20,000 threshold, or no, because we're not paying someone?
You could do the work, it would not trigger the contract procurement issue, but you would probably want to have some, given the potential liability associated with the flooding going on right now in the area, it would probably be prudent to have an engineer review whatever you're proposing to do anyway, in which case you're probably looking at something similar to what you're already intending to do now. But we can look into it more closely. BMA may have its own engineers that have already evaluated the situation. They may have something that they're comfortable with as well. So it warrants a discussion to see what you want to do. But to answer your question, no, you would not have to go through the procurement. If you were doing it with city staff, that would be okay. But there would be some other issues regarding engineering, legal liability associated with already a flood-prone area and the city modifying the drainage in the area.
Well, if I may.
If council's okay, can I get a cost estimate to have our engineers, TRC, look at maybe those 2 sections, to see what they would charge us to engineer to put something in there? Now that's if James and his crew can do the work. I mean, they're already covered up a bunch as it is. I mean, we don't have just money sitting out there. I mean, I wish we did, right? Because I wish we could just spend the money
Sure.
and fix it and be done with it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a problem our current regime inherited, and we're trying to address. None of the recourses I've been able to find have been able to fix it.
So again, all I was looking for was the opportunity to do the dirt work. Okay, that's it. And there's an engineering plan.
Yeah, back in 2011, I think we did, we tried to do an engineering study, but a lot of people would turn it down a little bit back there.
Yes, sir.
And then we did it again, and we haven't heard from back. But, I mean, I understand what you're going through.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I used to be-
Yeah, actually, my friend Mr. Kate had made a comment about that early in the year. I think it was around March or something when we first started talking about all this. And so, honestly, with all that had gone on, I had to check on my own notes. And the fact is, when the residents started talking with each other, this question came up. We're like, okay, well, why would we spend more tax dollars or any kind of budgeted funds on something that already exists? I mean, this is a relatively new community at the time. We're talking 2011. The flood occurred in 2010. So what we were discussing and what we had proposed and talked about at the time was exactly what I'm saying now, is that there is a drainage study required. I mean, there was a civil study, certainly, that came with the request to annex a community. So that exists somewhere. So at the time, we were like, just use that study and fix it, because it doesn't work. And so that just never came to fruition. As I said, previous regime, gone away. Don't know what the status of that is,
Yep.
but that is why that, we're agreeable to.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know
why spend money?
when, I think, there was an act before I got in council, but, we talked to the DMA and they didn't want to do anything at the time.
Yeah, no, we were waiting for them at the time. I talked to DMA also, was looking for them to do exactly what they've done, which presents the opportunity to have a fix.
Council, if I may, to save time, if we could table the item to the next meeting, let me do some research on it, let me reach out to TRC. If they were our engineers at the time, they should have something on file. I don't know what else to say. Let's just see what's on file and let me give a report at the next meeting, and maybe there's something we can move forward with.
And I would like David to go out there, if it's okay, meet
Excellent.
with you.
Oh, yeah, be glad to.
I have your number. When are you available? Evenings?
I'm always, okay, so it's one of those things.
I'll
I know
call
that-
you.
I'm always, yeah, just call me.
Okay.
I'm always working, so it is what it is.
I got you.
But I can be there. I'll make it happen.
So council, I have a motion for us to go ahead and table this?
Yeah, I move that we table this item until we have a chance to look at it and prepare for the next meeting.
Okay, got a motion on the floor to table, second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Is he still on?
Folks, I appreciate your consideration.
Oh, no, he's not on, no, sir.
Okay. Please make a note on there that he came off.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, sir. All right, E, let's go ahead and move on. Consider an act upon entering into an amended and restated solid waste contract with Waste Management Contract. Chris, come on up, sir.
Mayor, how are you tonight?
Good, good.
Council members, thank you for having me. What you have in front of you tonight is two proposals from Waste Management for the continuation of services for the solid waste services, our current agreement. You see here.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me first start with just our history and our relationship. We've been providing services to the city of Lytle for close to 40 years. Garbage Gobbler was our subsidiary that we purchased some time back, and that current contract started in November of 1984. That was an evergreen 4-year contract that automatically renewed. And when I came in 2018, our company wanted to take a look at the services that we were providing, and there was a number of updates and enhancements to the services, the technology we were offering, and also the language, terms, and conditions in the agreement that we wanted to adjust. So in 2018, we began those discussions. It was voted on in, I think, actually 2020, but it was a retroactive contract to 2019. That contract expires October 31st of this year. Waste Management actually provided notice to the city based on a number of factors of our intent to not renew this current agreement with its current terms, conditions, and pricing. The reason for that, and if I can draw your attention to that slide there, is that our inflationary costs associated with providing the goods and services for solid waste collection has increased dramatically. Our costs have actually outpaced the language that our contract allows for in order to recover costs published through the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Energy. So that's just a snapshot of what our industry has seen, all over, whether it's waste management for public service, Tiger Sanitation, any of the companies out there. We've seen a decreased amount of pellets allowed to make the resin for our carts that we provide at your homes. The tires that we put on our trucks, we're waiting right now for 5 trucks to get up and running for parts that we haven't even seen, that we've been on back order for several months. So CNG cost, that is our fleet here out of the San Antonio Hauling District is almost 100% run by CNG natural gas. And so as you can see, those costs have dramatically increased. So as we looked through and audited our agreement, our performance, our metrics, we decided that we wanted to come to you all and propose some different terms and conditions that would allow us to catch up with the inflationary effects that we've seen in the industry to provide service. So some key points to the 2 proposals that you have in front of you. Right now, the city and your staff has actually handled the customer billing and collection for not only residential, but commercial and industrial customers. That's outside the norm of what we see in the industry. Usually cities manage the customer service or the billing for residential only. That was just a historical decision made at the time to keep things here in-house, be able to communicate with the cafe down the street because he knew them. We have the ability, and the staff actually, more so than yours, I understand everybody's limited right now in time. We have the staff to be able to manage those calls and to ensure that we can educate the residents, or the businesses, on the proper ways to ensure that they're being serviced. So also, we're proposing the utilization of WM's customer support. We have a phone, we have a phone number that everybody can use, a portal, a chat, and we also provide monthly reports. When we would take this over, we could show you the number of customer contacts in the relation of the satisfaction rate of the services. Right now, we strive, obviously, for 100%, but in all of our cities that we're in, even with the data that we're tracking, we're at 99.5% success of all the services we provide. Included in this agreement, we're also contractually obligating ourselves to some community involvement, because over the years, as we've seen some effects with, let's just say, COVID, our company decided to draw back some of the non-contractual sponsorships just to ensure that we had the money and the resources necessary to take care of services and the staff necessary. So for me, I'd like to put these into the agreement. We're putting a proposal of a $5,000 annual monetary sponsorship for the city to choose for different organizations of its choice. We're also proposing the sponsorship of a community citizen drop-off location for Keep Lytle Beautiful events, similar to what we've already done throughout the year. So that's not contractual, that's just something we've done, and so we wanted to make sure that's spelled. We're also proposing the at-your-door household hazardous waste collection. So I was looking around the room here for a few items. That old TV, I don't know how long it's been there, but it's been there since I've been here. I don't know if it turns on, but if you ever want to get rid of it, you can certainly, you're not supposed to put it in your trash can, but call us, we'll come pick it up, concierge from your home, or the city. So if anybody wants to take it home with them, we'll get it. Also, we're providing a continuation of the citizen convenience stations for the recycling drop-off. I was just talking to James about it. Right now, there was a call by a council member that's not on the council at one point to provide recycling services curbside for residents. The city decided that was not the need for everybody here. The price obviously would have been affected. So the request was made to provide a 20-yard roll-off at the public works yard for residents to come and bring the recycling items, and we provided that free of charge to the city, so we're going to continue doing that. But we'd like to upgrade the container so it's protected from the elements. So we can go into that later. And we're also going to be mentioning, it's not necessarily a contractual specification, but it is a service enhancement that we are rolling out to all of our residential partners and cities that we work with. This technology is it's a smart technology that is our proprietary information that Waste Management has created. So we're the only ones in the industry that have it. If you don't know, all of our commercial and industrial trucks, we're taking photos as we're rolling up to a dumpster, and we're actually taking video of that. Some of the businesses may have seen that there's what we call a snapshot charge. It's overflow of trash outside the container. We're taking that same premise and providing and using that at a residential home. So hopefully that would limit a few of the phone calls that, hey, you missed us, let's go back and check the camera and make sure it was out there. Or we can actually see what material is in the container. So if it's hazardous material that we can't take to the landfill because of a TCQ, violation that we want to avoid, we can actually work with the resident to educate it. You know, it can be seen as a compliance standard. However, it's mainly just to work towards educating that customer and that resident to do the right thing next time around. Let's see.
Okay, before you go, so just wanted to let you know, Chris has done an outstanding job of informing us and letting us know about some of these projects. So the hazardous waste was something that wasn't looked at before, and it's a
Sure.
great thing for us. I think it's going to be a great thing for our community to be able to do that. And the community outreach and the support, as you know, he's been very helpful with that.
Yes,
So
extremely.
we just want to say thank you for
Yeah.
bringing those up as opportunities, as discussion as we go into the new contract.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much for that. So, this is just kind of a look at what we'd like to add with the enhanced customer experience. So, with the city staff managing some of the contact with the customers, Waste Management hasn't necessarily been able to provide the communication that we've always done and we do with all of our other customers. So, with this, some of the businesses will have on the left-hand side, that's our customer portal, that as a business owner, you can go and schedule your services, cancel service, or pay bills. So that is a portal we have that the businesses will be able to have already at their fingertips if we move forward. The second is our residential services brochure that we like to produce for the residents if we move forward, not only printed but electronically for the city to publish on its site. The third there is a cart enforcement or bulk compliance tag. You may, hopefully none of you all on the council have seen it, but some of the folks in the city may have. If you've got some material that's out that's not done the right way, or your cart may be parked under a low-hanging wire, we'll leave that behind. Our drivers will check the area that might fit that particular scenario, and hopefully the resident can adjust the next time around. And that last one there is just our collection schedule. We publish that usually annually for the residents to look at what their actual service day is for not only curbside trash, but bulk or brush collection. You guys only have bulk from us here in town. So just a highlight of the two options is once a week trash curbside, one time a month curbside bulk collection, and inclusion of the Keep Lytle Beautiful cleanup events, which we're providing over 15 free roll-off hauls throughout the year to offer that with continued support of Keep Lytle Beautiful. The a la carte item, if you will, is the unlimited at your door household hazardous waste collection. That's concierge. We come to your home, and it's unlimited times that you can use it throughout the year. So,
Chris, can you let them know how it works? You
Sure,
place a phone
yeah.
call and
absolutely. So there's a video there. I can click the link, but it's like 5 minutes long, so I'm just going to save you all some time. So essentially, let's just use this TV for instance. If this TV is at your house, Mayor, and you want to get rid of it, so you can either go online to our portal, or you can call a specific number. Our call center folks will work with you to identify when the next collection date is available in Lytle. They'll ask you what your particular material is, what items you have. Whether it could be paint, solvents, it could be an accelerant like gasoline or anything like electronic like that. We'll identify what you have. We'll send you out a kit, bag it up, place it right outside your door. We'll give you the date. We'll come by and it's gone. So easy as that.
usually response time within a couple of weeks?
I
or-
would say right now, just based on our labor, I would say about three weeks out.
Okay.
Sir, from if you're calling today.
Large items, big TV, flat screen TV, can't put it in a bag.
Within reason, we'll take it. I mean, if you don't have one of those jumbo TVs that used to be at one of the sports complexes.
Oh,
but
no,
yeah.
I like it, something that fits in your wall in the house.
Absolutely. So we have a box truck. So I mean, we've taken some big stuff.
We-
So
By the way,
Put a tag on it, I guess, instead of putting it in a bag.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
we do have one of those,
You have one of those.
in one of the other buildings. So.
Well, let's cut it up for you. We'll cut it in half and take it. So the other option is the second option. So we're trying to give you an option to kind of impact a little of that sticker shock, if you will. Inflation has been crazy. It's going to go up no matter what. And so what we talked about is just an option that would provide everyone an opportunity to get rid of their bulk items, but make sure that we're not subsidizing the cost of a few that may have an excessive amount of bulk for those that only utilize a monthly bulk service, maybe once or twice a year. So we're providing a quarterly bulk service option, continue to curbside. Still will leave in the cleanup events with Keep Lytle Beautiful, and then hopefully with the use of At Your Door, if that's the service you'll decide to add on top, some of those bulk items that people usually hold to bring out to those Keep Lytle Beautiful events, we can get those in picked up in that program. And so that reduction of service, if you will, and frequency of service will be absorbed by the other option that we're offering. So there's the rates for those. We broke it down with everything included, the at your doors at household hazardous waste collection, and excluded is that rate. So we have those two options. Yes,
So
sir.
2 questions.
Yes, sir.
How much do you pick up right now currently on a monthly? How many residents do you
Are we
pick up
talking
with
about
bulk?
trash, bulk? Or?
Bulk, since we're moving into quarterly.
So I would say your set out rate, that's what we go by, is about, I would say 60% set out. If you're looking at all what the current paying residents of 1,300 homes that are in the area, about 60% set out.
Set out something for bulk?
Correct. On a monthly basis. And not everybody is, and so I guess to further answer your question on that, there's a 4 cubic yard allowance with that. Not everybody is using that 4 cubic yard allowance. Some people will have 1 mattress. Some people have 3 mattresses and a sofa. Some people will have a television, which we're not supposed to pick up in the first place. Some folks will have a fridge and a couple items. Most of the things we actually see, and this is kind of part of the education process that we're hoping to partner on, is items that aren't even accepted. So it's part of the communication of that piece there. So I truly think that the quarterly bulk option as is right now is a good thing. It absorbs that inflationary cost, but also if there is something that you would like to look forward to go into, we can always amend the contract going forward, right? But I'm just, both those options are there.
I'm just looking at the capacity. If we do move it to a quarterly, the capacity of being able to handle, if every month, you're going to do it every few months.
Are you talking about our capacity?
Yeah.
Well, we're ready to take care of that. That's,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, we'll throw the necessary trucks to get it done.
Yeah.
So as long as we're all on the same page of what we're picking up and the amount we're picking up, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
So.
That's the thing, and the other portion of it is just our folks having to keep it a few extra months
I
and
think
stuff.
people will adjust.
So-
We have the 3 or 4 roll-offs where we do
Yes,
twice
sir.
a year at least. We
Yes,
Keep Lytle Beautiful. They know that's coming, so some of the stuff goes there. If we go quarterly, people just hold their stuff or dump it with us or wait.
So question on the quarterly, that's my second one.
Sure.
So-
Question.
Question, quarterly bulk pickup.
Question in what sense? I'm sorry.
And a question in the sense of, so if we go to that,
Sure.
would you align our actually quarterly cleanup events right after the
Oh, so
curbside?
yeah, the premise would be for us to pepper in the cleanup events in coordination with Keep Lytle Beautiful Committee.
No, what
along
I'm
with those
thinking
questions.
is, our residents put it out. It doesn't get picked up,
Mhm.
right? So now we have a dumpster, be able to get rid of it. Could we coordinate it?
For us to come back out.
No, our dumpster.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you might not pick it up because it's too big, right?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
But they can haul it and they can put it in the dumpster as long as it's not construction material and
So
stuff
they
like
Keep
that.
Lytle Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we would hope is with your code enforcement team, Skip is named correct. So with Skip, we would work to identify those areas that maybe a resident had too much out, right? We just let them know, hey, we'll come around next month or next quarter, depending on what you vote on tonight. Or just keep in mind that there's this event, you can throw it on a flatbed truck, throw it in the back of your truck, and take it out, talk to your neighbor, and help you get it out to that event. So we'll promote that together.
Well, that would be the thing, is for us to do it smartly where we have you guys picking up,
Mhm.
and if it's too big, that the following weekend they can haul it and get rid of it,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So that would be the key.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind our landfills, the closest landfill to your area. I mean, any resident can drive Colville Gardens. I mean, you would have access to that. I mean, not free, but you can certainly come on by and, if you have an excessive item that doesn't fit, you can come on out and visit us there. So,
Okay. Cool. Those are my 2 questions.
okay. Yep. So if anybody has any other questions, I answer them for you tonight.
Council, if I may, so when I presented on utility rates a week or 2 ago, it was shocking to me that no other city provides a monthly bulk pickup. Most of the other cities I looked at was twice a year. So where we could go to this quarterly to keep that rate from waste management down, because remember, on top of that amount, we have to add in our brush collection that we do monthly for the residents. So that's another $5 to $6 a month on top of what you're seeing there we have to add to that bill. So if we did a quarterly pickup, and then we get, I like that, the salesman right there, we get over 15, 16 dumpsters, 16 roll-offs. So we get 16 roll-offs a year that we can use for other bulk pickup items. So like I talked before, we pepper those in strategically so we don't, overdo it. A lot of it's education. What we see on the bulk pickup is people calling here and it's not really bulk. It's construction debris or something like that. So I think to work with our residents, it's just like when we went to the carts. It's a little education, but if we can educate our residents, we can go to quarterly and hopefully keep our rates lower to the residents and then become accustomed to that and still have the locations that we can take it to put it in the dumpster outside of the quarterly pickups, hopefully. And then we're gonna talk about the recycling. We need to take that to the 30-yard. I guess they brought us a 20-yard just the other day when our 30-yard was only half full. So little things like that we're trying to work into these contracts to keep us in line of where we need to be.
Chris, can you very briefly speak to what sort of educational literature you could prepare for us to hand out to our citizens?
Sure. We'll go back. Those 3 items on the right-hand side are all items that are regularly provided by us. So it's an annual service brochure. All that information will be included in it. We provide it not only in print or electronically, and we can bring some door hangers around, do that. We can send out postcards to notify the new service changes. We can provide signage for the public works yard, for the recycling, what is acceptable, what's not, various different items that we can do. And as well, as you guys increase your social media and electronic presence through your website, we have our own public affairs department that will create and generate everything
We can link
with
to
you
your
all
stuff.
and with your logo on there.
Good,
So-
good.
And Council, I think talking with Chris before, there was some reluctance on our city's part to post some information on our website. I've told him we are free to post whatever we can to educate the residents to make sure we're working as a team here.
And I just have to say something on that. I mean, I really appreciate Matt's willingness to work with us. I mean, there's been a lot of times where there's a customer concern or complaint, and once we dive into it and take a look at it, realize we all did the right thing. It's just folks don't know what they don't know. So if we can work together, and I appreciate your openness, and Jesse, as we work through this contract proposals, just to be able to spell out and clarify some of those misnomers that just were just misunderstandings. So appreciate that. Thank you.
I think we addressed all the stuff I brought up, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so as long as you guys addressed it, that's perfect, I appreciate it.
So some of the key things we were looking at is maybe going quarterly, letting waste management take over the commercial billing for us. Instead of us doing that, we can set a franchise fee to that. We would keep the residential. We would continue, no, we wouldn't take any complaints. All complaints would now be directed to waste management where they need to go. Because currently they come to us, and if you ever know how a message works, if you get more than 2 people involved, something gets messed up. So those would go directly to them. Let them work on that, and in the contract, they shall give us that report, or at least access, we can draw it down. My concern initially when I heard that is it's a service we provide, and they're the contractor we select. I want to ensure that the residents are getting what they're paying for. So once I know we can get those reports and they're adequate, that keeps me happy. So that way if a resident comes in and says, hey, they didn't pick it up, I called, still unsatisfactory, we can call and get a whole dive down real deep into it, get the recording of it and everything, so we'll know what the issue was.
So just to clarify that, we can provide monthly reports regarding the customer contact. So we'll break it down by how many times we service somebody within the city, whether it's a resident or commercial business. We will actually list the date of the date the complaint was received, the date it was closed, what steps we took to address that particular concern. So we usually provide that on a monthly basis. In there also, I'd like to provide the contamination rate and the contamination threshold for that recycling dumpster, just to keep everybody in, abreast of, the material that we're seeing and we're actually processing. It's meant for recycle. Unfortunately, sometimes we see a little bit more trash. So with hoping with all that information thrown in there, you can make sure that you have the right information necessary to make a decision the next time around if you'd like to continue. So we can agree to that.
And then the last thing would be, they would be our provider. Waste Management is our provider for residential and commercial service. You're not allowed to use anybody else. The only way you can use a different provider would be on the temporary type construction. You could shop that price. But outside of that, it's Waste Management. And I drove around most of the commercial. I don't think I saw anybody but Waste Management. Probably 95 to 98% of our commercial locations anyways.
You're talking about city only.
City only, yes,
Yeah.
within the incorporated city limits, yes.
Well, no, what I'm asking is, I can't go to some other company and get a dumpster, put on my property.
If you're doing temporary construction, you can.
Okay.
If
Just
you
wanna make-
want a dumpster at your house, no, you'd have to go through Waste Management.
Just making that clear.
So just to clarify on that, there is a distinction of both permanent and temporary roll-off containers. Those are the long, open top boxes, as we, kind of refer to them in the industry. A company like HEB or a large box store will most likely have a permanent roll-off container there, compaction. It compacts the trash. And so we already have the statewide agreement for HEB, so that's not a shock to them if that were to happen. I don't think there's any larger stores that would require a permanent roll-off, but in our industry, there's an exclusivity portion in most agreements for permanent and temp roll-off, temporary those construction sites. And so we've agreed that we would not have the exclusivity on temporary construction sites. So.
And the brush pickup, that'll remain monthly.
Yes, but
That
that's out
does
for
not
bid
get
right
affected.
now. We're waiting for bids to come back in on that, and then we'll
Okay,
present
but
it
as
to
of
council.
now, it's still monthly.
Yeah, the intention is to keep that monthly, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, there are a few sort of small housekeeping items that I need to talk to Christopher about on the agreement. So if the council were to elect to approve the agreement, then we would need authorization to negotiate and execute the agreement.
So we need to have a motion with allowing you to negotiate.
Well, no, we would Matt to negotiate it,
Oh.
yeah, right, to negotiate and execute the contract. And so, just to give us a little room to go and finish that up, there's a few, I was looking at the contract today, there's a few minor things that need to clean up. But the substantive items that would be concerned with the council or with the draft.
So we can move ahead
Oh, yes, most definitely.
with the caveat that you need
Yes,
to hash out.
yes, the contract is very similar to the prior contract.
Mhm.
It's, that's why it's on the agenda, because it's an amended and restated contract.
Mhm.
But there's a few small things that I have not had a chance to go back and talk to Christopher to clean up to get it in the
No
agreement.
showstoppers?
No, nothing, just, just things that the attorneys worry about, but they would not be
Legalese.
really into the weeds to get into some of those minor items, but yes, we want to go ahead and get a chance to clean those up before. we
Understood. Well, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the option 2 to include you taking over the billing of industrial and commercial, and that you also take over the customer complaints, and that we have the restriction that only Waste Management serves our city. Was there anything else?
5 years?
Quarterly?
Yes, we're going on a 5-year
It's a
contract.
5-year contract, is that
This is
correct?
a 5-year, yes.
Okay, we agree it's a 5-year contract. Is there anything else I'm missing,
Are
Matt?
we gonna go quarterly or monthly,
Uh,
and then?
Yeah, quarterly
franchise?
is option 2.
Yes.
Quarterly.
I might mention, quarterly, is that with at your door or without at your door? It's two separate
I
prices.
haven't gotten there.
Okay.
And with the at your door option, I think that's a wonderful thing.
And do we need to state a franchise percentage?
Yes.
Yes.
So Castroville chose 10%, right?
Yeah, so City of Castroville, your nearest to large city neighbor is 10%. We've seen anywhere from 3, 10, your choice. We will place that on the invoicing for the commercial businesses and remit that back to the city.
So 10% is what?
I would recommend it.
All right, then 10%, with the understanding that our lawyers and you will work out the minor details on the contract.
Sounds good.
Is there anything I missed on the motion?
I'd like
Not,
to second
we'll
that,
find it.
Mayor.
You got a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Chris, thank you so
Thank
much,
you very much.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Please work real closely on those open items, appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and, okay, tag team. Yeah, here we go. We got CPS now. So consider and act upon entering into a 1-year extension of the CPS Energy Gas System O&M contract. All right.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Fuentes, and I'm the Director of Gas Construction for CPS Energy. And I just want to start off by saying that CPS Energy values the partnership that we have had with the City of Lytle for the past 12 years in operating and maintaining your natural gas system. And CPS Energy's primary commitment is to ensure the integrity and the safety of this gas system. So with that being said, we have this contract, and this contract is up for renewal on September 30th of this year. So the agenda item that you'll have before you is for a 1-year extension. And this 1-year extension will take us from October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. And with this 1-year extension, what's included with this 1-year extension is a 13.65% inflationary increase. So we'll be providing the same operation and maintenance services, but we have to increase it by 13.65% based off inflation.
Got it. So I want to say thanks. I know here as part of our discussions, and I know David was involved with that. To Julie and Yvonne, thank you so much. We appreciate your assistance and being here to be able to be part of that. And to our superstar, Melissa, that has always taken care of us with CPS. Any questions or anything, we really appreciate that. Did we have the final amount of the contract that we had? So we can.
It came out to so
96.39.
much money. Yeah,
It was
just
originally-
shot 116.
Yes.
I think when you look at the numbers, and we have to have 20,000 for capital outlay, which is something we budgeted for.
It's going from $8,481 a month to $9,639 a month. So it's an increase of $1,158.
All right. I think it's a great opportunity for us. We appreciate all your assistance too. I know in negotiating and trying to get something that is reasonable for our community, so we would still be able to operate and be able to take care of our customers that actually use that utility. So I appreciate that. So council?
My only question is this 13.65%. We're locking that in for 1 year. Is there not an option to go further than that? Is there a money issue or?
No, that's a very good question, and what's gonna happen is within this 1-year extension, we'll be having meetings, we'll have discussions with my peers, city staff, and we'll be talking about options for what's next steps for either of them.
So currently there's nothing on the table to
As of-
lock in that 30, so next year it doesn't go up again. There's no way to lock that in. In other words, all we're doing is doing this 1 year and that's it.
If
That's
I
all the
may,
option.
counsel, when we started this conversation with CPS, the initial price was much higher.
Right.
I think they realized we needed some help, and they've reduced that cost to us a little bit so we can stay operating. We've got too many irons in the fire right now, and to renegotiate an entirely new contract because of timing. The concept is that we get through this year, and in this year, we really look at what we need to do, because the gas system's not very large like the water system or sewer system, that we can spread that cost. This is the one that kind of hurts the end user a little more because there's so few on it. So we have to really look at this utility and make an informed decision on how we move forward.
And that's why we don't want to tie into a longer contract.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, I can tell you, I would be one unhappy camper if I decided not to go with natural gas. I'd have to redo my whole home.
No, we
And
would
then
never do
that's-
away
no.
with natural gas.
Okay,
No,
well,
no,
that's-
we're not
I'm
talking
just
about
throwing
shutting,
that out
no, we will never shut the natural gas off. It's just we have to make a decision on how we move forward
But
with
it
natural
sounds
gas.
like at some point it may be, the price may be too high and unfeasible.
Well, right now, Michael, we're servicing 348 residents. That's
Okay,
what
so I'm not by myself.
You're not by yourself.
And I'll have some help.
Yeah, we've got residents that are on it, but again, it comes down to what's realistic for the city to do and what's the best option for the city. And I've always talked about we shouldn't take losses.
Yeah. So in
we
the
need to look at our
past,
systems.
just so the council knows, and we'll bring this up, and that's another discussion that we'll have besides tonight. Tonight is just the extension. But the city in the past had made a decision based on the maintenance and the cost and the personnel that we needed to be able to take care of our system, that it was more efficient for us to go ahead and ask CPS for assistance. And that was a decision that was done with our predecessors. And that was the right decision to make at that time. So we're going to be, what Matt is saying is we're going to be at a point right now that we're going to have to look at all that again and try to figure out what is the best thing for our city for the maintenance and the running of the system within itself. So with this extension, we're going to have an opportunity to be able to negotiate, talk about it, and figure out, okay, what is the best thing that we can do for our community and still be able to provide the service. The service is not going to stop. We're going to continue that. But it's the best way, just like council had to make a decision previously. We're going to look at those things again.
But I'm also looking at the new subdivisions. They're not even going to get the opportunity. So there's a customer base right now that is coming up that they're not, that's not even future business.
So there's two. So the housing developers run one portion of it, but the other portion that we have to, as a community, realize as we grow is a commercial that goes along with that. And the commercial growth that is going to happen along 35 and a few other places are going to be requiring the necessary natural gas for them to do that. So along with some of the businesses around, and we've talked about some of these possible businesses that are looking in our area, and natural gas is part of their equation. So the need is going to be there.
Good.
It might be in a different way, but I think in the future we'll get together, we'll bring it up to council, and we'll discuss that. Tonight we just want to make sure that we say thumbs up in the sense of being able to agree to allow CPS to continue the great work that they're doing and be able to take care of us.
It's just that 1365, that's a good number. That's a high number. And I don't want to see that every year. So I have to throw that out there. And you're making a good point. And we have future business. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
I move that
Council?
we approve the one-year extension of CPS Energy Gas System O&M contract.
Okay, I got a motion for us to go ahead and approve the one-year extension with CPS?
Including the increase that we've discussed.
Oh, yeah, including the increase based on the amount of, okay, got a second? Okay, got a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes,
I
sir.
just would like to add that, if you're doing any type of excavation work in your house, any type of digging, planting a tree, fence post, or any type of construction, to call 811 so that we can go out there and locate the natural gas facilities, and other utilities can locate their facilities as well. And another thing is, if you smell gas, call 210-353-HELP, 911, and get the emergency response
Yes, sir.
so we can mitigate that issue.
And thank you also. We had that situation
That's right.
here in the last, year and a half,
About
2
a year.
years, something like that. And we appreciate CPS responding out here in full force. I think we took over the police department, just being able
Appreciate the help
to
there,
take
too.
care of that. But
Awesome.
we appreciate everything, and thank you. And we look forward to the continuing negotiations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out here. We appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and, I know it's 8 o'clock, council, but we still have some folks that are here, so if it's okay, let's go ahead and push and take care of them. So G, consider and act upon an ordinance of number 22-07, amending Chapter 8 Buildings and Building Regulations and Chapter 36 Subdivisions and Plats of Code of Ordinance of the City of Lytle to implement traffic requirements and amend the requirements for the completion of the traffic impact analysis. We have Chris and Amy. Come on up.
Thank you very much. You guys have had a busy agenda of exciting public services tonight. So Amy Avery, Kimberly Horn and Associates, we've been working, we had a couple different projects, I've been here a few times before, but this is one that's near and dear to my heart, setting cities up to gracefully deal with growth. So you guys are faced with a lot of growth, and so we took a look at the traffic impact analysis allowances that were within your previous code and looked at expanding that, tightening it. And so it's just, I've got a brief overview. Your previous, the way the code was written, there was a 200 trip a day threshold. Anything over that did require a traffic study. The parameters that were required, it was not very specific on what exactly was required to be included in that traffic study. And there was no requirement for mitigation at a certain level of impact. So I think over the years that's caused a little bit of friction. What can you ask for from folks? What can you not? So the goal here was to really clearly outline what can be asked of development and get the studies that will allow you all to make the the decisions that you need to regarding a development. So some highlights of this one. There's more structure. So the complexity of the traffic study is tied to the number of trips that are generated. So the larger development, the larger their study area will be. The more intersections they'll be required to look at. So it kind of radiates out from the actual development based on the trips that they are projected to create. So there's more of a table of contents in this section of the code now that specifically says what needs to be in there to be considered a complete traffic study. So that your reviewers are going through it, they know what exactly the parts and pieces should be that are there. There are thresholds for delay increases. So any new traffic is going to change the landscape here. And so looking at what is I don't want to use the word tolerable, but an incremental increase in delay that isn't, that the system can absorb more gracefully versus one that's going to be a shock to the system. And you really need to have that development mitigate their specific impact. There's a lifespan for the TIA. I think this is a thing a lot of your surrounding cities didn't originally have in their ordinances. A TIA from 40 years ago, useless. I mean, what did Lytle look like 40 years ago? So, clearly saying that when a certain amount of time has elapsed from the last phase of development, the TIA would require reconsideration. So if somebody hits pause in their development for 10 years, comes back, they're behind the game, they need to reevaluate because the baseline has changed for where they are. So clearly outlining what the lifespan is of those traffic studies. Also clearly delineating turn lane requirements and access spacing. So how closely can those access points be spaced? We actually tied that one to TxDOT requirements, which especially in a municipality of your size, I definitely always recommend because TxDOT's constantly doing research on what are those spacing distances where access and crash probability balance out. They don't update it often, but probably about every 10 years they update it. So just a little bit of timelessness if they actually have recently been looking at it. So just, you'll advance with them immediately by having adopted a reference rather than a specific number. So I'm happy to entertain any questions about specifics. But yeah, those were the highlights of what this will offer you moving forward.
This is important for us to be able to do this. I know some of you were involved in that initial workshop that we sat down and tried to figure out, because it's important as we get certain sections of the city and based on already challenges that we have in the traffic, that the city has something in place to make sure that we have somebody go in and do that analysis to make sure that we're not going to run into situation. So I think it's worked out really good from what we saw. Appreciate legal helping us out with some modifications in there to be able to take care of that. Was there any last minute, Matt, or anything?
I don't think so. I think as we move forward, this is something we need. So these subdivisions come in, we can ensure the impact they have on our community, we can make them, if they meet your threshold, make their adjustments so it doesn't interfere with the normalcy that we're used to.
Yeah. And it's very reasonable too. If it's something small, it really doesn't require the study. It just depends on how much movement we actually have that will require them. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we set that threshold, the 2,000 trip a day threshold. You could have a bunch of trips spread out over the course of the day, but what's really impacting you and how you experience it is what's happening at those peak hours when everyone wants to be moving around your city. So the new pivot from looking at a daily total to looking at a peak hour total will provide that for you all.
If we pass this tonight, when does it become effective?
That is, we were just talking about as we started. I know the draft had September 1st. We weren't sure when this, obviously we cannot have it be retroactively effective, but I think.
We talked to legal, could we go with?
Today?
It could be effective as of today.
Well,
Today?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so even if all the paperwork's not absolutely done, we can make it effective today.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the paperwork is all
It's
done.
done.
So
Okay.
it would just need to be adopted. And we set it tied to, if someone has already turned in a plat and it's percolating through the process, they're not subject to that, but if they show up tomorrow and make their initial application, they would be.
Okay, so that would be the grandfather in effect of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
if somebody's already like on a second submittal or something, you're not
Mhm.
gonna change the rules in the middle of the game, but for anyone that hasn't started playing yet, absolutely.
With certain stipulations. too.
Yeah, and those were, I think those were on the
Yeah.
first page of it,
Yeah.
kind of who gets
And
to
had the other one with
keep
the
playing by
safety.
your existing, yeah.
Yeah, with a safety portion of it. So everything is already addressed in there. Everybody's had an opportunity to do that. So, and we already had a number on it, 22-07.
Yes, we've already issued one.
It's already issued a number for it, so it's ready to go. So,
So you just need a motion that we approve ordinance number 2207. Is
that's
that right?
correct. That's correct.
I make that motion.
Okay. Second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries forward. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you for the great work and the quick turnaround. We appreciate it. And I know as we grow, we're going to be reaching out to you guys. Okay, there's probably going to be other ordinances that we're going to need some of your expertise so we can make sure that we take care of our community.
Yeah, and now that this is set, there, as part of our original agreement with you all was to create some worksheets that now that all the details are worked out, that'll make it easier for your city staff to determine if TIAs are required or are not, to streamline that internal processing, just to not have to make it more clear, put the burden on the applicant, but then you're just making sure they did their math right. So hopefully that'll be useful going forward. So those details are forthcoming in the coming weeks. We'll hurry before you're, we'll try to beat that next application, but awesome.
Thank
y'all.
you.
Thank you very
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Council, one more. So I think I'm looking at the audience. One more we got to take care of before we go on break. So let's go ahead and take care of H. Consider and act upon the approval of a mobile home being placed on lot 19-A, block 40, San Antonio Irrigation Farms, located on 18506 Live Oak Street by Eric Collins, as recommended by the Mobile Home Commission.
So council, this is the last final step they need to place that mobile home. It's already been approved by the Mobile Home Commission. I believe we're still working through just getting a copy of the final plat for that, and then they're ready to go.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and accept the Mobile Home Commission's approval.
Okay.
Let them go forward.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second?
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, thank you for hanging in there. We appreciate it. So, Matt, do we have something back there?
It was a little quicker than we thought at first.
So, you guys are welcome. We have some food back there. So, if you want to join us, you're more than welcome. Okay. You guys stuck here. We appreciate it. You guys sticking with us. All right. So, let's go ahead and do this. It's 8:12 right now. So let's go ahead and do a 15-minute break on here. If we're ready before that, just come on in. Let's go ahead and take a break, and we got goodies. Richie, you're already out there.
Did they leave already? Because we don't have so much back there.